what I'm going to keep will be divided in two parts. I mean, one is the issue of dissent in itself, and secondly, I would like to comment on what kind of people, I mean, what kind of thinking goes on when people take certain kind of stance, and how these things are coming up, why the society has become like that. Like Malika said, why this is happening, and why don't people stand up? This is a question which me and my wife, since she is also a practicing psychologist, we discuss more often, and we have lot of case studies. Whatever I am going to say is on the basis of those case studies. First and the most important thing is I am sitting with Anand here, and my journey into activism is started from one of his films, and by chance one of the students who initiated that thing is also along with me here. We screened Ram Ke Naam at the Haryana Agriculture University in Hisar. I think you might have received a mail for that also. It went well. The response was good, people were willing to talk, and we got a little bit more enthusiastic. We went on to screen War and Peace. Again, the response was good, the discussion, the size of the discussion, it increased. We were further encouraged, so we took the next step of going for documentaries related to livelihood issues. And we screened a film called Development Flows Through the Barrel of a Gun, and we were done for it. We got a letter from the Superintendent of Police saying that you need to come and we need to talk. And the complaint was given by the RSS chief of that place, and he has accused us of sedition, anti-national activities, and we had to submit certain papers to prove that this film was awarded by the Government of India also. So either first to file a case against Government of India, then we are poor souls, we are standing up. So somehow we were able to deal it, but we got a taste of how the state tackles sedition, tackles dissent, and we also came to know about how the right-wing organizations, they use law to browbeat. They are very efficient in using the law in pulling people down. And since we were a small group of people voluntarily working, it was very difficult for us to fight it out in that way. Our experiences, it simply increased after this. One of us, we keep on writing to the Vice Chancellor of one of the new universities found in Hisar, it's the Veterinary University, telling him about the irregularities that are there, telling him please don't do this kind of thing, it violates your own law. And one day we received a legal notice from the university, and that legal notice said that this legal notice, it's written in the legal notice that it is a goodwill gesture. It's a goodwill gesture that we are warning you that you can be charged of defamation. So I never knew that a legal notice can be a goodwill gesture, and they said we are warning you of defamation. So I was wondering, this whatever mail we have sent, whatever letter we have sent, that is we have addressed only to the Vice Chancellor. We have never released it to the public. It never came out in the newspapers. How it can be defamation? I consulted one of my friends who happens to be a lawyer there, and he said you'll be aware of this. One more chap, he did the same thing with the other university at Hisar, and he got 2 years. Just because the correspondence was between him and the university. So the issue is these people, they use law to stifle, to kill dissent. They don't want to hear anything that is against what they want to do. Similarly, we had a screening of a documentary on Shaheed Bhagat Singh at Guru Jamresh University. The screening went on well. The response of the students was excellent. But the next day I got a call from the Vice Chancellor office that you come, in this particular screening, there were anti-national statements issued, and you people declared Shaheed Bhagat Singh as a terrorist. So we said we never declared that. So they said, no, no, it is there. I have received a complaint. And then when I went there, he gave me a copy of the complaint. It was submitted by the Bharat Vikas Parishad people. And a few of the teachers of the university were signatory to that. And we had to submit the video recordings of that screening to prove our point that nothing like that happened. So what I'm conveying is that these people, they are masters in using the law when it comes to pulling down people. The importance of dissent, I mean, that's a very important thing which I would like to stress upon. See, unless and until we speak up, unless and until there is an opposition, there is an objection to certain things happening, the chances of improvement is not there. And that we have realized. Small little things when we should have spoken, we should have taken a stand, we don't, so it gets accumulated and the state thinks they can get away with it. We have seen a lot of protests happening, people coming onto the street. People coming onto the street is a good thing and it is also a form of dissent, but these kind of protests cannot sustain unless and until there are organizational support. You need an organizational support for these protests to actually culminate into something good. And when it comes to organizational supports, it is the activist group which works at the lower level. They get together, they form groups and they try to fight it out. But the problem comes, the government, they terrorize these kind of small groups. We have seen that happening, and then 400 of them have been issued notices under the FCRA. So the government tries to control. We formed a group and we were very clear about one thing, that no funding from anywhere. We were contributing it from our pocket and maintaining it. We were offered funding, that was the strangest thing. I received a phone call from the Health Ministry saying that we would like to fund, I mean primarily because you are involved in some women related issues and mental problems. So we would like to fund. We said no, we don't need that fund. It's difficult to do, I know, but that is one way of controlling, I mean controlling dissent. See, one thing which I learned, and the psychological aspect of it is, most of the majority of people, the kind of schooling we have, we are trained to be obedient children. We are trained to be obedient students, we are trained to be obedient sons, we are trained to be obedient daughters, and then the state also expects the same thing. You need to be obedient. My own daughter, she got punished. She was in 3rd standard, and the teacher, some student in the class asked how we were born. The teacher started the same old story of the goose and the monkey dropping you here and there and things like that. So she raised her hand, she said, no, 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 it is not the case. I know how children are born. So the next thing that happened was she was turned out of the class, made to stand out, and it was ordered that she should not have the lunch with other kids, because this kid can spoil others.
This was before Harshvardhan.
So this was before Harshvardhan. So, so that happened. I mean, and again, the important thing is you are molding the children the way they think. You are molding them to take obedience. So the more they take obedience, the less the critical thinking part will be there. And the less the critical thinking is, the more they can be controlled by the state. When I see a religious gathering, so many people sitting in front of them, following each and everything that the other person is saying. If he says raise your hands, they will raise their hands. If he says you sway this side, they'll sway that side. Why? In psychological terms, we say that many of them, or the majority of them, their adult is dysfunctional. That means the logical reasoning is not there. They are a bundle of emotions. So they can be swayed by emotions. And that is what is happening. In most of the so-called technical educational institutions, they have multiplied in numbers. And in technical educational institutions, they are regimented. They are not given time to think. They are regimented. Their timing is such they don't get time for themselves. They are not allowed to sit with themselves. They are supposed to prepare for the project. They are supposed to do something or the other. And those things, it may be monotonous, it may be meaningless, but it serves the purpose of the institution. that they should never get together and think and have their own ideas. Our universities, they don't have any problem if boys, they drink, if they go out, thrash each other, they don't have any problem with that. But if you form a discussion group, there is a problem. There is a serious problem, because if you discuss, then finally what will you discuss? Slowly, ultimately, those discussions will come to the institution itself. And then they will challenge why Vice Chancellor has passed this order, why this teacher has been appointed like this. So, an institution, it feels challenged, threatened, so they would not like this. So, for dissent to happen, it is very important to have free speech. But free speech cannot happen unless and until that free speech has a space to be heard. I mean, on Facebook, lot many people write, we write, but is it reaching to those people whom it should reach? What is the media doing? How much space they are actually giving to rational thoughts, progressive ideas? When it comes to economy, they don't. They call them to be thrashed. I've seen many of the anchors doing the same thing. They call people with diverse views, not because they want to give them a space to speak, but primarily because they want somebody to be thrashed. So it is very important that for free speech, unless and until there is free speech, you cannot have a proper dissent. And for dissent to happen, I mean, see, there is one more right which is associated with this right to dissent, and that is the right to assemble and the right to unionize. And if you look at the last 10 to 15 years, this is what has happened. I mean, they have started dictating where we should assemble. At our place at Hisar, there is the mini secretariat building is there. The DC has issued an order, and they have specifically made a place that is known as Dharna Sthal. So they say go there, sit there and protest. Why? That space is such that nobody can see you. You will only find some pigs roaming around and maybe some people coming out for the morning ablutions. No one else. So the administration has decided where will you sit, where will you protest, and how will you protest. If you are a good boy, you should follow their orders. And if you violate orders, violating orders is a serious thing. So that can be sedition, that can be anti-national. So it is very important to have this right to assemble and to raise one's view, one's point. So right to dissent can be utilized once we have these rights. Right to unionize, I mean to have associations. We have seen that consistently. Even the Rajasthan government recently passed the order in the name of law reforms, labor reforms, that to form unions, now you need 30% people willing to form union, not 10% like earlier, right? And the number of employees required to form a union, they have increased that also. So it becomes difficult to organize and form unions and then to protest. So what is important is that when we are talking about right to dissent, we should also emphasize on having a free speech, having the right to assemble at our will, having the right to form groups, and then there should be coordination between these groups to fight it out. And law, legal measures, we should also use as much as these people use to trouble us. Thank you.